Hello and welcome back to another She's the Boss video interview. Today I'm joined by Erica Fox, the founder of Foxtrot Digital Communications. And you're joining me from Toronto, Canada, right?
I am, and it's just warming up over here. So thanks so much for bringing me on today.
Oh no, you're the furthest afield so far. So thank you for joining us. And no matter how cold it is here, I know that it's probably colder where you are, right? What's the weather outside?
It's 0 degrees today, and we're all so excited that it's so warm out.
Yeah, I think we're about 4 or 5, which still feels very cold, but not as cold as Canada, I'm sure. So tell us a little bit about Foxtrot Digital Communications. What gave you the idea to start? What do you do? And kind of, obviously the name I'm going to assume comes from your surname, but what was the inspiration behind the whole thing?
So there's 2 parts to this story. One is where it started in terms of like a business relationship, and the other is where it started in terms of a service. So from a service perspective, I really just felt like there wasn't a very refined and very elegant approach to social media that was being brought forward in the Canadian marketplace. I felt that digital marketing and social media wasn't taken as seriously as it could have in terms of a tool that could be derived and used for serious dollars and cents ROI. It was always sort of seen in Canada as that thing that 21-year-old marketing intern does on the side in addition to her job, and not really seen as a customer service channel, a customer acquisition channel, or a way of actually increasing and making an impact on your bottom line. And I felt that part of that was the way that marketing agencies had, up until then, sort of proposed themselves and branded themselves. It's always been, these bright, happy, bubbly colors and those kinds of things. And they walk into a meeting, and you're going to a meeting with CFOs and CEOs, and the way that it was presented was, a bunch of 25-year-old kids in plaid shirts. And I felt that after working in a very luxurious corporate culture, which is my background, I think part of the reason why social media wasn't taken as seriously as it could have was how it was being presented by marketing agencies, as well as the climate for digital marketing in Canada in general. But from an entrepreneurship point of view, I actually had a business partner originally who dropped off fairly early in the process, and his name was Christopher Trotman. And so that is how we came up with Foxtrot. But as I'm sure many people before me have said, building a business is like climbing a mountain, and it needs a lot of vision and it needs a lot of stamina. So Christopher and I are still very, very good friends, even though he wasn't able to come on this journey with me.
Well, you've already started us down a route that I wanted to go down. The decision to start a business with somebody else, what kind of conversations did you have with Christopher before you started? And I guess once you chose to go separate ways, how difficult was that process for you?
So this is actually my 4th business, and I am proud to admit that 2 of them were complete and utter failures, and 2 of them have been successes on my own gauge of what I consider to be success. And I've worked alone, and I've worked with business partners before. I find it very challenging to work with a business partner because it is like getting into a marriage. It really is. It's one of the most intimate, heartfelt, emotional, and connected relationships you'll ever be a part of. At the time that we started Foxtrot, I felt that Christopher was the right partner for me, and he would have been. Like so many entrepreneurs, in his case, fear got in the way. I use again the analogy of climbing a mountain. I mean, when you first begin a business, especially when you begin it with someone, we get really excited about all of the easy wins, the small, low-hanging fruit, like picking colors for your branding and choosing your logo and putting together the website. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, like creating a sales plan and having the chutzpah to actually execute that sales plan, or whether it's creating processes, and I believe process is the foundation of every great business, it can be quite, yes, I'm so glad to see you agree. Process really is the foundation of all great business, and it is on that foundation on which you will scale. And that can it can be really daunting, because that's when you realize that you are not on the top of a tiny little molehill. You are just trying to reach base camp of Everest. But I like to work with partners. It's funny. My mother is an entrepreneur as well, and we've spoken about this at great length, because I like to work with business partners because I find it very motivating. I find I like the accountability to other people. I like having someone to bounce ideas off of. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18. I know how lonely it is. It is an extremely lonely process. From my personal experience, it's been very lonely. And so I like the idea of working with somebody and being in the trenches with someone. Why I bring up my mom is we laugh because I do my best work alone. and I bring the best out of me when I'm working alone. And when I've been my two successes, one of them was quite literally, I did it all by myself, literally all by myself. And so it is one of those funny things where we strive for connection, and that is a fundamental human desire, is that we want to feel connected, accepted, and loved. And even when you're working on big, grand, big vision things like a business, we want to connect with others and not feel so lonely and feel like you're in it with someone. And so I think that's what drove me to want to start this business with someone. But when Christopher went his own way, and yes, we are again still friends, I was able to bloom into my highest potential because I was able to actualize my own vision, and I had no one else to sort of, when sometimes we see let's bounce ideas off of someone, it can be very healthy, but it can also be very limiting because you're looking for their validation of your own ideas. When you're on your own, you have to be a radical narcissist who just believes audaciously that you are going to make it. Because if you don't have that grounded sense of belief and grounded in a sense of self-knowing, you ain't going nowhere, honey. So I think that by working by myself, I've had to force a sense of confidence, force a sense of even narcissism, and that audacious belief that you are going to make it. And as a result of that, I think I've been able to push a lot further than had I been with a partner from the beginning.
You've just created about 6 different questions in my head, and I need to try and remember. So I'm going to try and remember the order. The first one, processes, is something that I, in my business, really try to hit home to all of the clients that I work with, and the importance of that. What kind of, in terms of you getting to that point of understanding that, what was the kind of light bulb moment for you? And when you built businesses, for all 4 of the businesses, has processes been fundamental to the business? And I guess a comparison of those that worked versus those that didn't. Did one have processes embedded and one didn't, or 2 versus 2?
Right. So okay. There's so many ways you can go about saying this. My first business was a property management company in which I owned multiple properties and renovated them by hand and rented them out to students. By not having a process, I wasn't able to maintain my own business. And so that was my first brush with process. That wasn't necessarily something I was aiming to scale, but it was definitely something I was aiming to maintain. And it was very difficult to maintain it without having relationships in place that I was able to count on when something went wrong. So not only was the process not there, but the forethought of what will happen when this happens? What should I do when that happens? And that's part of developing process. You have to sort of leap into the future and not be negative, but think about all of the positives and negative outcomes from any decision and figure out, okay, what will I do in that case? And you know you have solid processes when you can keep answering the questions that come into your mind. What will I do when that client drops off? What will I do when that thing breaks? What will I do when that employee leaves? If you can answer those questions with confidence and be able to have something that is organic and fluid enough that it can be a process that drops into any situation, that's when you know you're onto something. But I think the biggest brush with process was when I built an e-commerce store in Indonesia, because that's what you do when you're 25. And you know, move to a country you've never been to, they speak a language you don't speak to, and you're just like, I'm going to do this thing I've never done before, because that's just what you do. And what ended up happening is we literally crumbled under the weight of our own success, is what happened. We had 10 employees who worked underneath us. We went from literally zero to 20, 25, and $30,000 a month in sales. And we had absolutely no process to handle the growth. And we were crumbling. We were literally crumbling under the weight of our own success. And that might seem like something that's really great, but it's actually heartbreaking when you're in the middle of it, because you feel like you're learning how to swim in the middle of a tidal wave. Mm-hmm. And I always look back, and without any sense of regret, because I'm grateful for the lessons of it, but I look back and I just think to myself, if we had spent just one more month just focusing on what do we do when we get an order? How does it go through the chain? How do we receive orders? How do we ingest a new fashion designer into our company roster? If we had really thought through all of those scenarios, I think we would have really flourished. And unfortunately, we kind of felt like we were under such weight and pressure that we sold the company as quickly as we could to a competitor that was able to, again, scale it and modify what we had developed. And that really, really taught me that going into anything, you need to think through what the beginning to the very, very, very end of the process is going to look like. And when I say end, if you're working on a product channel, for example, I don't just mean from the sale of the product to the delivery. I mean from the conception of the product to after the customer has used it for a month. Mm-hmm. You need to think really bookend, really large bookend on how you're going to deal with every segment along the way, and even in the micro details of every step. And then you will be able to move forward with confidence. Does that sort of answer your question a little bit?
That's the best answer I could have ever asked for. Because for my business, that is kind of the cornerstone of what I preach about, the importance of processes to enable you to scale your business and to, I guess, stop this issue that a lot of, especially new in the first kind of year or two, founders, if they get sick, a lot of the time I've heard these stories, people get ill or they have a baby and the business falls to pieces because there's no processes mapped out, there's no operations handbook, and they can't bring in somebody to run the business for them. And it's very interesting that you took that route without me prompting you. And again, you led me to ask other questions. I'm trying to remember the questions from the first answer to the question from this one, which some of them kind of correlate. You said you sold the business because it kind of you went, the success was too much for the business to manage without the processes. I also sold a business under similar circumstances, and for me, one of the key feelings was that of kind of despair. Like the business was me, and now there's no business, and I've failed. How have you've said you've had two businesses that haven't necessarily worked out the way you wanted to. How have you dealt with the emotions of that process?
The first business, because we weren't very far along, we hadn't actually got the spark of the fire to light. I just kind of felt like, I put so much hard work into something and it didn't work out. Lava, I count as both a failure and a success. Sorry, Lava was the e-commerce store I had started in Asia. I counted as both a failure and a success. It was successful. We got it off the ground. We made a lot of money. We got it together. But it was a failure because, again, like I said, we sunk under the weight of our own success. And when I came back from that, this is the realest I can be. Like, I went through a strong depression. I mourned the loss of that business. I mourned it. And it even still hurts a little sometimes today when I look at the climate and the market for e-commerce in Indonesia and Singapore today, and to see how rich and dynamic it has become and how many players are in that market. And any entrepreneur knows, when you're the first to arrive, you really get to set the tone and you get to pave the way on how it's going to be. We've seen this with so many products on the market today. And, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And all I can do is look back on that and be exceptionally grateful for the lessons that I was able to walk away from that experience with. But I also had to truly honor my feelings. I took about 4 months to really reground myself, because it took a hit to my confidence too, eh? And so I had to really reground myself, recenter myself, get back in touch with what I knew to be true about who I am as a person, my characteristics, my values, what I knew, because you go through a period where you're like, should I even be an entrepreneur? Like, do entrepreneurs feel this badly about themselves when they fail? Do entrepreneurs really fail? Because I'm looking at Mark Cuban, and that man doesn't look like he's failed since 1985. So you start to really question all these really important things about yourself. And yeah, I will admit, for like a solid 2 to 3 months of that 4 months, I was in a shame spiral, feeling like I had told the world that I was going to do this really big, audacious thing, and then what happened? I came home. With my tail between my legs and not a lot to show for it, except for being able to pay back the loan that we took to start the business. And I have really high expectations for myself, extremely high. I'm one of those people who suffer from being too hard on herself. And I really had to learn self-compassion. I had to learn radical self-honesty. I had to learn self-acceptance, accepting the decisions that I had made, knowing deep down inside of myself that they were the best decision I could have made with the information I had available to me at the time. And that's all you can do when you're in the grips of failure, when you're in the grips of a lot of difficult emotions. And I felt at that time that it was best for me to take a step back from entrepreneurship after doing it for 8 years and move into a corporate position. And honey, the moment I was in that corporate position, I was like, I don't want to be in a cubicle. I started crawling the walls. And so I knew the hunger was real, and I had to go back to owning my own business. That first failure is remarkable. It's remarkable for its lessons. It's remarkable for the impact it makes on your heart. And I think that every entrepreneur should do 2 things: fail miserably at least once, and work for someone else at least once, because those 2 things will make you into a real, true, and fast entrepreneur. It really will.
I feel like you're talking directly to me, so I'm getting emotional. Yeah, because I completely, I agree. I feel it. I've been there, so I can relate so much to what you've just said. Your confidence came back, and earlier you were saying about you have to be somewhat of a narcissist. Your mother, and was your father also an entrepreneur? Or did I make that up?
He was dragged along into it, yes.
Okay. So you grew up in an entrepreneurial household. Do you think that provided some of the basis for your business confidence?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to be like my mom. I'd see her going to work in her Chanel suits every morning, and I thought that was the quintessential strong female. But it's a two-edged sword, because now I'm living in the shadow of a great woman. And it's a very big shadow to live up to. I'm very lucky to have someone in my life, my mother, who pushes me every moment, and every time that I think that I can't do it. Like when I was starting that business in Indonesia, I will always vividly remember sneaking out of the office, calling her on a cold tile floor in the hallway, and crying to her that this was the hardest thing I've ever done. And she said, "You have 2 options right now. You can come home, or you can wipe up your tears and go back inside. The only way you can make this decision is, do you want this?" And I said, "This is the best thing that's ever happened to me." So she said, "So honey, grab a Kleenex and go back inside. And by the way, fix your mascara, because I know you look like a mess now." And so I did, right? Because I knew that feeling of like, this was the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm privileged to grow up in a family that has business acumen. I am. So there was a lot of discussion in my family about how to make good decisions. Financial literacy, huge. You need to understand accounting, or at least just a basic of understanding of the way the economy works. if you're going to put a product or a service out there and expect to have a return from it, you need to understand value, right? And how others think and perceive of value. If you ever want somebody to pay you for the perceived value you bring them. And so we had a lot of those kinds of talk. So again, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. You know, I'm very grateful for the foundation of knowledge and the emotional intelligence that being in an entrepreneurial family brings you. But it is a high scale to live up to. It's a high bar to live up to. And you know, someday I will make it. Someday I will hit that bar. Because I'm also a peaceable woman. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, it's an advantage, yes.
I can see how it can be a blessing and somewhat of a curse at the same time. So going back to Foxtrot Digital Communications, what has been, firstly, how long, I don't know if you said this already, but how long has it been running, and what has been your greatest achievement in this business so far?
So we've been around for 3 years now. We're in our third year, which isn't very long for an incubation. I'm impatient, so for me it feels like forever, but it's not very long for a business to really incubate. I think a business takes about 5 years to really get its footing and its grounding, most businesses. What is our greatest achievement to date? I mean, I have fantastic clients, I have to say. We're very, very fortunate to be working with people who have vision, appreciate what we do, pay us well for it. I think one of our greatest achievements to date was when we moved from working with small and medium enterprises to large corporate enterprise clients. Because when you start working with big educational institutions, multinational corporations, and we're just starting down that road now. We've been working with one of the largest colleges in Ontario for about a year now, and that's now branching off and generating additional business for us. And that was a real validation point for, especially for me. And then as I brought on team members, it was for them as well. I mean, little things like hitting that first six-figure number, right? When you first realize that your gross adjusted income so far, or profits at the end of the year, is going to be over 6 figures, you're like, I made it. You get really, really excited about that. And so for me, those are some of the measures by which I judge our success. And then, you know, it's little things like, you know, I've had one employee already move on to do other things, and having that person tell me that she learned, she grew, she became more of herself through the process of our company. I mean, as much as I want to make big money, and we all want to make big money, for me, a huge part of the emotional satisfaction that I get from being a business owner is being able to pave the way for others around me to visualize their own success and go for it. And that was a real big turning point for me when I realized that we had fostered a corporate culture, or company culture, excuse me, that is breathing success into everyone around us. That was a huge moment for me as well.
And taking on your first member of staff, what was your approach to that? Was you looking for someone specifically that was a good fit based on their resume, or was it more a good fit with their personality? Was it a combination of two? What was that process like?
Yeah, so I look for two things when I'm hiring somebody. One, I don't want somebody who's like me. I want people who are going to who have their own opinion, who have their own style. I think that it makes for a much richer dynamic. Obviously, I want people who are positive, who are ambitious, who are go-getters. And there are some very basic skills that I look for, especially if they're going to be in a client-facing role, like being well-presented, being articulate. But one of the two things that I really feel strongly about is looking for people who have complementary skills and characteristics to my own, because our team is so small. and I still do a lot of client-facing work, as opposed to looking for more people like me who make me feel comfortable. I feel as entrepreneurs, we always look to build teams that make us feel validated and comfortable, because so many of us are scared, huddling in a corner at night in the fetal position going, why did I do this? Why did I do this? Why did I do this? And so we look for people who are similar to us to validate our decisions. And so I really try and go in the opposite way and try and make myself as uncomfortable as possible and find people who will challenge me. So that's number one. Number two is I look for people with work ethic. Especially in my field, I get a lot of younger people applying. I would say that the typical age range of anybody who would apply as a copywriter, social media person, public relations professional, or graphic designer under me is about 22 to about 27. That's the main range of people. So it tends to be very young. So I'm not looking for somebody who has 10 years of experience in social media or has been a marketing director. What I'm looking for is chutzpah. Because you can't teach chutzpah. You can't teach work ethic. I can't teach you to want to finish this project and be proud of the product you've put forward. I can't teach you to put in that extra hour. I can teach you Facebook analytics. I can teach you Adobe Photoshop. I can pay for you to go and take a class somewhere, but I can't teach work ethic. And so it's really important to me that I find people out there who have hunger. And even though I look for people who challenge me, I want somebody who has a very similar level of hunger, of ambition, because those are the people who are going to believe in the greater vision of the company. And if they don't believe in that vision, they will never work as hard as you to make it a success. They have to understand that by even sitting in that seat, they are generating value. And that value adds together to create the sum total of this company. And so I can't teach that kind of perspective. That's something that really has to come from the individual. So those are the two things that I really look for when I'm hiring people.
If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give your 18-year-old self advice about the journey ahead, what advice would you give?
Take more risks. Be more confident. Stop being so gosh darn it, so scared. I've always been a confident person, but around people that I was comfortable around. And then you would put me in a huge group of people, and I would second guess my words. Or if I felt like I was standing in front of somebody who had more experience or accomplishments than me, my posture would change. I would become meeker. I would become quieter. I would put sir or ma'am at the end of every sentence and disguise that as simply being respectful, when really it was me letting them know that I know my place. And if I could look at my 18-year-old self, I would just tell her to go for her dreams with a whole lot more veracity than I did at that time. And so, so I would say, take more risks. I wish I took more risks in my 20s. I wish I took more risks in my 20s. You know, I always used to say, your 20s are research, and your 30s is when you really begin life. Well, now I'm 32, and I wish I did more research.
No, I agree. I'm 33, and although I feel like I did a lot of great stuff in my 20s, I feel like I should have pushed a little bit harder and took more risks. But I too was scared, and I didn't want to fail, so I think I also held back. Going 10 years in the future, where are you? What does success look like?
Success for me in two parts. One is I mean, it's in me. I want to have a great company. I want to have a globally successful company. I want to have an office here in North America and in Asia. That's only one part of it. The other part of it is that I want to really reach other people who are similar to me, other young people. I don't just want to say women or anybody of a particular background or race, but young people who understand that the 9 to 5 narrative that's been put forth towards them, the high school then graduate school, then get married, then retire, then die narrative that's been put forth beside in front of them. If that doesn't resonate with you, that there are other options. And I want to have a platform of some way to be able to motivate, coach, and inspire those around me to really get critical, really understand what it is they desire in this world, what it is they value, what are the characteristics they love about themselves, and foster that self-love and that self-honesty with compassion and acceptance, and go after whatever it is you want to go after, not necessarily just entrepreneurs. So for me, success is twofold. But yes, I do. I want to grow. I want Foxtrot to rival Edelman. Okay, I want it to rival Fleshman Hillard. I want it to rival Oligavi, Anomaly, all of the biggest communication firms, because I do believe that marketing and communication can drive almost any idea, and I want us to drive some of the biggest ones out there.
Fantastic. 3 pieces of advice you give to somebody just starting out on their journey. Well, you kind of touched upon it, but if we say 3 distinctive, definitive pieces of advice.
Sure. Number 1 is get clear about what you're doing. That doesn't mean that you write it down in stone and it never changes. Give yourself permission to be flexible and organic about your approach and about your goal. But if you are saying, I kind of want to go down this road, it's going to be a lot more challenging for you. You gotta always persistently work on getting clear about what it is you're aiming for. 2, keep it to yourself. I know that this might run counter to what a lot of like the gurus and the experts out there say, and I will say that I could be wrong. It's just an opinion. But in my opinion, keep it to yourself unless you know the person you're speaking to will support you 100%. Okay? And support sometimes comes in the form of giving you a better idea or being critical about your approach so that you're able to see any flaws and amend and improve. But there are so many people who are going to bring you down in this world. Okay? I always say never speak ill about yourself because there's enough people out there who speak ill for you. Okay? But keep it to yourself and hold on to that magic, because the more you dispel that magic into the world, the less you have to work with. So get clear, keep it to yourself, and then have a hunger for it. Okay? And that's part of getting clear. If you don't hunger for it, if you don't wake up thinking about it, if you're not mulling it over in the shower, if you don't have an urge to scream it from the rooftop, if you don't have hunger, then really be honest with yourself about why you're doing what you're doing. Okay? So you have to have that confidence. You got to go after it with veracity and just claw your way to the finish line if you have to. But go for it like there's nothing to lose. Like there's everything to lose, because what you will lose in the process if you don't go after the things that you're hungry for is yourself. Okay? This will save your soul, whatever it is that is in your soul that yearns for you to make it a reality. It is in your soul, and you are in a race for yourself. So do yourself a favor and go after it with all of your guts, all of your passion.
I feel like I've just been to church. No, honestly, it's emotional. I feel like you genuinely speaking to me and where I am at the moment in my entrepreneurial journey. So thank you so much. I'm sure, I'm positive there's going to be a lot of people out there that really resonate with what you said, that are inspired, that are motivated. Because I feel like as soon as we finish, I need to go and do some work, make some calls, and move forward. Because really, thank you so much for that. If people want to find out more about you, about the business, where can they go to find out more?
Thefoxtrot.ca if you'd like to find out a little bit more about our agency. But if you'd just like to reach out to me directly, I'm at Erica D. Fox on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also find me at linkedin.com/Erica D. Fox. So feel free to message me, leave a comment, reach out. I always love to hear from people and to hear about their journeys as well.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching. please, if you found this useful, which I'm sure that you have, please leave a comment, please like, please share, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel so you can get the latest updates on She's the Boss and all of the other videos that I share on the channel. And once again, Erica, thank you so much for such a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for pumping this message into the world. We really need more people like you. We really genuinely do.